Hey guys, so you have to take the Unit 8 test this week, and remember that the entire unit is a bunch of formulas that you just plug numbers into. So I'm going to do a sample review with you that you will have to do in Alex before you take the test, and then you're going to take the test and make sure you record any of your written work. So let's go through this review so I can remind you how to do each of the problems that are going to be on the test. So there are 19 questions, so you're going to have 19 questions on the test as well. Okay, the first question is going to talk about the circles, or the first couple questions are probably going to talk about the circles. So in this first question, it asks you to name a radius, name a diameter, and name a chord. So we're going to first name the radius. Remember, the radius is a radius of a circle goes from the center of the circle to the outside. So one of the lines that goes from the center to the outside would be line QP, okay, or line segment QP. The diameter, remember, spans across the entire circle and goes through the center of the circle. So an example of the diameter would be P to U. So you would call that PU for the diameter, okay? And then a chord, remember, doesn't have to go through the center of the circle. So the only picture of a chord here would be ST because it doesn't go through the center of the circle. So ST is what we would call the chord. The last question says if the length of QP is 7, then what is the length of RU? So if we look at QP, Q to P is a radius. So it's saying if the radius is 7, then what is the length of RU? So if this is 7, oh, that's supposed to be an R, I believe. So if that is 7 and this is 7, then what is the diameter for RU? And that would be just doubling it. You'd say, okay, well, 7 times 2 is 14. The diameter must be 14 because it is double the radius. Okay, so let me just change the diameter is not a P. That's not a P. This is an RU. All right. Next question, still talking about circles. Asks you for the circumference of the circle. So you will not have to remember these equations. I am going to provide them to you on a formula sheet for the test, okay? So the circumference of a circle, remember, is 2 pi r, and in this case it wants you to use 3.14 for pi. So you're going to say, okay, well, first of all, they only give us a diameter, so in order to find the radius, we're going to have to divide by 2. So if we divide that by 2, we know that the radius is in fact 11, not 22. So you have 2 times 3.14 times 11. And if I plug that in on the calculator, you have 2 times 3.14 times 11, and you get 69.08 millimeters. And you don't need the square because it is talking about a circumference, not an area. So there's your answer, 69.08 millimeters. Okay, and for our next question, it's still talking about circles. So the first 5 or so questions will talk about circles. The next one gives us a circumference of a circular field and asks us what the radius is for that. So what you're going to do is use that same formula, C equals 2 pi r, and again use 3.14 for pi, and you're going to plug in what you have. So you have that the circumference is 279.46. That equals 2 times 3.14 for pi times r. We don't know what r is. We have to find it. Well, 2 times 3.14 is 6.28, so we have 279.46 is equal to 6.28 r. And in order to get r by itself, we're going to have to divide by that 6.28. So 279.46 divided by 6.28 is 44.5, and they used yards. So I'm going to say the radius is 44.5 yards. Okay? The next one is talking about the area of a circle. So the formula for area of a circle is pi r squared. And in our picture, it does give us that the radius is 4. So this time it already gives you the radius. So you're going to use, again, 3.14 for pi and you're going to times it by the radius, which is 4 squared. Well, 4 squared is 16, so you have 3.14 times 16, and that is 50.24, and they talked about yards, and this time when we put a label, we're going to say yards squared because we're talking about the area. In the 5th question on the test that deals with circles, it's asking about both circumference and area. So you have to find the area and the circumference of the circle. Okay, so remember, area is pi r squared, circumference is 2 pi r. So if I have a diameter, now it gives us a diameter of 52. Remember, in order to find r, we're going to divide that by 2. So 52 divided by 2 is 26. And that's our radius. So now let's plug it in. So we have the area of the circle is 3, I'm going to call it 3.14 times 26 squared. 26 squared is 26 times 26, which is 676. So you have 3.14 times 676. And if we multiply that out, we get that the area is 2,122.64 feet squared. So there's your area. And if I plug the same numbers in for the circumference, I'm going to get 2 times 3.14 times 26. And if I plug that in the calculator, I get 2 times 3.14 times 26. I get that the circumference is 163.28 feet. And there's your second answer. And then the next couple questions in that problem do ask you just about area and circumference of a circle. So it's saying if the lawn is surrounded by tape, what would you use to find what measure would you use? So remember, when you're surrounding something, that's talking about the outside of a circle. And when we're talking about the outside of a circle, we should be using the circumference because that measures the outside of the circle. The next one says fertilizer will be applied to the lawn. Since it's going to be put right on the lawn, then that tells you that you're going to be using area to find that measure. Okay, question 6 also still deals with the circles. So there's quite a bit of the circles unit in here. Question 6 asks you to find, again, both the area and the circumference of a circle. And it wants you to find it this time in terms of pi, which means we're not going to be using 3.14 or really our calculator for this one because we're just going to give what the values are with pi. So again, area is pi r squared. So we're going to say, okay, well, it gives us the diameter is 8, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our radius is in fact 4. So we have pi times 4 squared. 4 squared is 16, so I'm just going to bring it out to the front and write my answer as 16 pi. And then circumference is 2 pi times r, or the radius. So we've got 2 times pi times 4. 2 times 4 is 8, so I'm just going to bring it to the front, and we write our answer as 8 pi. Okay? Moving on to rectangles. So remember how to find the area of a rectangle. The area of a rectangle is just length times width. And this one is very simple and straightforward. It gives you the length is 12, and it gives you the width is 5. And 12 times 5 is 60. Just make sure you have the proper label for it. Since they were talking about inches, we would call that 60 inches squared for the area. The next question on the test, question 8 on the test, has you draw a rectangle and then figure out what his area and perimeter is. Okay, so first you're going to plot the points. So -3, 7 is right here. -3, -2 is right here. 1, -2 is right there, and 1, 7 is right there, and there's our rectangle. Okay, so remember, we're going to figure out the perimeter and the area. Perimeter, remember, is the outside of the rectangle, so I'm going to have to count how long and how wide this rectangle is by units. So if I count how long it is, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units long, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4 units across. So to find the perimeter of this rectangle, we're going to have to add up all of the side lengths of the rectangle. So remember, if this is 9, then across from it is also 9, and across from the 4 is also 4. So if I add all those together, I've got 9 plus 9 is 18, and 18 plus 4 plus another 4 is 26. So the perimeter of this rectangle is 26. And since it doesn't have a label, you would call it 26 units long, or around of the rectangle. And then remember, the area of a rectangle is length times width. The length is 9 and the width is 4. So you're simply just going to do 9 times 4, which is 36 units squared. So perimeter is 26 and the area is 36. Okay? And the next question on the test, question 9, is still talking about rectangles, but it gives you in word problem form. So it gives you that the perimeter is something and it wants you to find the length or the width in certain ones. So remember, there is an actual equation for a perimeter of a rectangle. The perimeter of a rectangle is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, okay? And remember, the area of a rectangle, again, is length times width. And again, I'll give you these formulas when you are taking the test. So they give us in the first one that the perimeter is 266. So we say 266 is equal to 2 times the length is 79, plus 2 times the width. And we don't know what the width is, that's what they want us to find. So 2 times 79 is 158. So we have 266 is equal to 158 plus 2w, and then we're going to minus the 158 from both sides, okay? And 266 minus 158 is 108, equal to 2w, and then in order to solve for w, we're going to divide that by 2, and your width is going to be 54 meters, okay? So the width of that one is 54 meters. This second one gives you the area of a rectangle, which makes it a little bit easier. So they say the area is 8,526 centimeters squared, and they give you that they don't give you the length, but they do give you that the width is 87. So if I want to find the length, all I'm going to do is divide it by 87. So I've got 8,526 divided by 87, and that gives you that the length for this one is 98 centimeters. Okay? So the area one is a little bit more simpler than the and less work than the perimeter one. All right, and then question 10 on the test out of 19 has you find the area of a figure that is literally made up of 2 different rectangles, okay? So knowing how to find the area of a rectangle, you can split these up into being 2 rectangles. So so all I'm going to do is just draw a line down here, so then I have one rectangle right here, and then I have a second rectangle right here. If I find the area of both of those, then I will be able to add them together to get my total area. So the first one, let's find the area of the first one. So if I split this up, remember, if I drew a line down there, then whatever is across from that line is also equal to it. So since across from that line is 2 yards, then that line that I drew to split up the 2 rectangles is also 2 yards long. So that tells me that 2 yards plus 1 yard plus 1 yard is 4. So the length of this rectangle is 4, and then the width is 2. So the area of the first rectangle is 2 times 4, which is 8 yards squared. That is the area of that first yellow rectangle. And then the area of the blue rectangle is 3 is the length of that, and 2 is the width of that. So we're going to do 3 times 2, which is 6 yards squared. So that's the area of the second rectangle. And then in order to find the area of the whole figure, we just need to add those two together. So 8 plus 6 is 14. So you'd say the area of the whole figure is 14 yards squared. Okay? So again, split it up into two rectangles so that you can find the area of each. Let's try the next one. So in the next one, let's see, if you look at this figure, I can make it into two rectangles by, again, simply drawing a line across the middle here to break it up. And if I draw a line across from the middle there, I now broke it up into two triangles. Let's label them or color them in yellow and then the other one in blue. And remember, if I drew that line, then across from it is going to be the same. So that tells you that this is 4 feet. And we're going to have to add that together to find the length of that blue rectangle. So 4 plus 2 plus 2 more is 8 feet. So we know that the length of this rectangle in the blue is 8 feet and the width is 4 feet. So if I do the blue first, we have 8 times 4, which is 32 feet squared. And that is the blue rectangles area. And then if I do the yellow rectangles area, we have the width is 4 and the length is 5. So 4 times 5 is 20 feet squared, and that's the area of the yellow rectangle. And then we're going to add them together again. So 30 plus 32 plus 20 gives us a total area of 52 feet squared. And that's our answer. All right, and then the number 12 on the test has you find the area of the shaded region. So remember, it is two pictures of rectangles again. So we're going to find the area of this. Let's highlight it yellow. This outside rectangle, okay, that we're going to call the yellow rectangle. We're going to find the area of that. And then we're going to subtract out the inside rectangle, which I'm going to color in blue here so that I can find the area of the shaded region. Okay, so if we do that, we have the area of the outside has a length of 16 and a width of 9. Okay, so the area of that outside rectangle is 9 times 16, which is 144. So 9 times 16, which is 144. And then the area, and that's the area of the outside. Okay, and then the area of the inside rectangle, the area of the inside rectangle is 7 times 5, which is 35, and that's the area of the blue rectangle. And I'm going to just subtract them. So I'm going to take 144 and subtract out 35, and I should get 109 yards squared for the area of the shaded region. So in this equation, instead of adding, I had to subtract. All right, almost there to the end. Question number 13 of the review asks you to find the area of a parallelogram. The area of a parallelogram that is going to be given to you is simply base times height. So the area of this parallelogram, if we look at what the base is and what the height is, the base happens to be 15 and the height is 14. So base times height. So we're going to say the area of this parallelogram is 15 times 14, which is 210. And then whenever we're talking about the area of something, it's yards squared. We add the yards squared onto it. All right, so that's the area of that parallelogram. All right, and the next one is the area of a right triangle. So the area for any triangle, the equation for that is 1/2 base times height. So in this one, you're going to have to actually count the base and the height. So the base here in a right triangle is 4 units long, and the base and the height here is 3 units up. So I'm just going to plug those numbers into our equation. So you got 1/2 times 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So half of 12 is 6. So this would be 6 square units for the area of the right triangle. Okay. On the next set of notes, we have another picture of a triangle. You're going to use that same exact formula, 1/2 base times height. In this case, your base would be 19 and your height would be 6. So you have area equals 1/2 base times height. And you got 1/2 times 19 times 6. And if we do that out on the calculator, we got 19 times 6 is 114, and 114 divided by 2, or cut in half, is 57 feet squared. So that one's 57 feet squared for the area of the triangle. And the third to last question, question number 16, talks about area of the trapezoid. I'm going to give you this formula as well. Remember, area of a trapezoid is equal to 1/2 times the height, and then you open up your parentheses, times base 1 plus base 2. So base 1 is the bottom of the trapezoid, and we're going to highlight that one blue. Base 2 is the top of the trapezoid. We're going to highlight that one yellow. And remember, the height is what makes the 90-degree angle. So the height in this one is 6. Okay? So if we plug in all of those numbers, we get 1/2 times 6 times 14 plus 4. 14 plus 4 is 18. So we have 1/2 times 6 times 18. So we're going to do 6 times 18, cut that in half, that's 108, and we get 54 feet squared for the trapezoid. Again, I'm going to give you that formula. In the next equation, the formula for the area of a rhombus is as follows. So the area of a rhombus is equal to 1/2 d1 times d2, okay? And those, remember, are the diagonals, okay? So if we look at what it gives us in this equation, it gives us that ED, I'll call it blue, ED is 7, and FD is 6. So notice that both of those don't make the entire diagonal. So since both of those are half of the diagonal, what I can do instead is I'm going to just double it at the end. Because if I double it at the end, then I know I'm going to get the whole diagonal. So 1/2 times one of them is 7 times the other one is 6 gets you 7 times 6 is 42. 42 divided by 2 is 21. So half of 42 is 21. And then what I'm just going to do is I'm going to double it at the end. So I'm going to multiply that. It's supposed to be a multiplication symbol by 2. And you get 42 millimeters squared. So the area of that rhombus is 42 millimeters squared. Okay. In the next question, question number 18, the second to last question on the test, it just asks you to identify the polygons. So remember, all polygons are identified based on the number of sides that they have. So the first one says, which of the figures is a hexagon? A hexagon has 6 sides, and if you look closely, none of those has 6 sides. Next one says, which one is an octagon? Octagon has 8 sides, and if you count the number of sides in part C, that should have 8. And a pentagon has 5 sides, and if you count the sides in part A, then that should be have 5 sides, and that's figure A is a pentagon. So that would be a simple one for you. And then remember, the area of a regular polygon, no matter what the shape, is going to be given to you as well, but it's 1/2 times A, which stands for the apothem, times P, big P, which stands for the perimeter. So the apothem is what they give you every time. So they give you that the apothem is the height here of this regular polygon, and it's 7.3 centimeters. Okay, so that's the A. And in this one, they actually give us what the perimeter is in the reading. So they say the perimeter is 49. So that's going to be our P in our equation. So I'm just going to plug this in and say 1/2 times 7.3 times 49.0. And if you plug that into your calculator, you should get 49 times 7.3 is 357.7, and cut it in half, divide it by 2, and you should get 178.85 centimeters squared for that polygon. All right, so you're going to be given all these formulas on a formula sheet. I'll put them on a nice formula cheat sheet for you and see if you can, and you can use them on the test. So use them wisely and hopefully you'll do a good job. All right, good luck.